Welcome to the channel, everybody. I'm excited you're here, and thank you for joining me for my review of The Odyssey, directed by Christopher Nolan. So, just want to start out by saying I've always been pretty much a Christopher Nolan fan. As a filmmaker and storyteller myself, he's been very inspiring. How he kind of came up. Originally, his first feature film was an independent film called Following. You know, very simple. You know, he shot it with some friends, and then he does Memento, he gets some notoriety. He's doing Insomnia and Batman, and you know all the rest. So, a big fan of like Inception and The Prestige, Memento, the Dark Knight trilogy. He's got some great films. That being said, he's got some that, you know, not everyone just loves. Some people still like them just because they're fans, like Tenet, you know. I don't hate Tenet, but it's like I do think it's one of his weaker films. That being said, he's still technically really great and he's fun to watch, you know. So this has been a cultural moment for several reasons. Like, people like big epic films if they're done really well. They like Christopher Nolan, so they're looking forward to that. There's been a lot of controversy concerning, you know, like the casting or historical accuracy. So now that we've seen it, what do we all think, right? So for me, in preparation, I actually read The Odyssey for the first time, which is crazy. I read a lot. I didn't happen to read it in school for whatever reason, but I like to read. I like mythology. I like stories. So I wanted to read it because I wanted to have an understanding of what this story is before seeing Nolan's take on it. Because I wanted to see, okay, is this a faithful adaptation, or is this Christopher Nolan's like take on The Odyssey? Is it just like inspired by it? I wanted to know who the characters were, what they stood for, what the themes are, what the morals are. And so I don't always do that with every book that's being turned into a film, but with something like this, it's nearly 3,000 years old and is still very prominent in our culture. I just thought I'd better do my due diligence, and I was interested anyway, so that's what I did. So that being said, let's dive into this review. Now, I should say there's gonna be spoilers, okay? A lot of spoilers, all the spoilers, every spoiler you can think of. So if you don't like spoilers, spoiler warning, all right? But if you do need to avoid the spoilers, I would appreciate if you come back and check it out once you've seen the film. All right, so despite all the controversial, cultural, topical issues, I'm going to do my best to focus on this more as just a film as a whole. Was it a faithful adaptation? Did I enjoy it? Does it carry the themes? Did I like this choice versus this choice? What did I think about the technical aspects? So on. So I'm gonna start by talking about what I thought was kind of odd, which was quite a bit actually. I thought the intro with the bard was an interesting idea, but the execution of it was strange. You know, like, despite whoever's playing the role, I'm not concerned about that at the moment. I like the idea of it because bards throughout history, throughout time, you know, people telling stories orally, and there is a bard in the poem, so like, that's all fine. But he has the bard like hitting this table like with his staff, and every time he does, he like says a word. He's like, a face, a sword, a warrior. It's just like one word at a time, and I get that you're doing it for like dramatic effect. And the cool thing about a film, right, is you can use visuals and sound and music and editing to kind of create a tone or a feeling. So obviously they're cutting to people's faces, they're cutting back to him, they're amping up that sound, but it just didn't really work for me. It felt too flat, it felt too overly dramatic, it felt too serious, and honestly just kind of boring. And I just also was not getting the exact tone. It's like, am I supposed to be like drawn into this? Am I supposed to be excited to hear a story? Or is this not a fun story? Is this not a heroic story? Or is this like an admonishing tale, something that's supposed to kind of scare you a little bit? It didn't feel right. And what was weird about it is I could tell this was being used to help set the tone for the film, which honestly, I struggled with throughout the whole movie to really figure out what the tone was, if there even was one. Other than like, obviously it's meant to be serious and it's meant to be dramatic and kind of heavy, but you don't know if there's supposed to be like a hopeful element or whatever, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but the point is the bard didn't work for me. The next thing was, I think it's Emmaus, I'm not sure exactly how you say the name, but it's the swineherd, played by John Leguizamo. We've got Tom Holland's character Telemachus, and he's practicing his sword fighting with Mentor, and they're on this cliff and they're going at it, and then the swineherd is trying to tell him how to fight. He's like, hey, you're going too fast, you're leaving yourself open. Something to that effect. It was really weird. I had a hard time kind of following it because I think the first thing he said was like, you're going too fast. I'm like, what does that mean? You know, so what? And they address the issue, right, of the fact that like the swineherd is mostly blind in this version. And so he's like, how do you know I'm going so fast? Like, you can't see anything. And he's like, but I can hear. which again is silly because it's like, how do you know just by sound that Telemachus is the one going fast? What if it's the other guy that's going fast? Like it just, so that doesn't make sense. But then also what's even more crazy is you're a swineherd. You're not a warrior. Why is the guy who's not a warrior giving the prince, who you can tell has had training, how to fight? Like, it's just weird. And the guy that he's sparring with is also a warrior. It's like, why doesn't that guy just tell him like, hey, you're doing this wrong, or keep your guard up, or whatever it is? It's so bizarre. And I was talking to some friends about this, and you know, they were confused why it bothered me so much. And I was like, listen, if you're going really fast and you have no skill, right? Like if you're just flailing your arms, like, yeah, that's a bad thing. But it's like, but if you do have skill, which Telemachus does, and you are fast, that's incredible. You know, you might want to focus on the fact that like, hey, you know, maybe he's unfocused, right? Like he's fast, but he's not focused. Focus is important. But it's all just a big mess. It's silly. Again, why is a swineherd telling a prince how to fight? It's dumb. Now, I get the fact that this scene is meant to show the connection between the two characters, and the fact that the swineherd loves Odysseus, and therefore he loves his son, you know, and it's supposed to show this bond, and that's gonna carry through the film. But that they could have done so many different things to convey that. It was just not good, and it annoyed me. So in terms of like structure, there's like the non-linear storytelling that Nolan does, but actually I don't think it's as like complicated really as a lot of his other films. It's really not that bad. It's mostly just kind of, I would say, normal, typical flashbacks whenever they need to reference something, you know, so I don't think it's that bad. It also kind of fits with the narrative of the poem when you read it, because as Odysseus is going from place to place, he'll meet like a king or someone, and they'll ask him who he is, and they'll ask him what's his story, and you know, he recounts things to them. So in a way, that stuff was okay. The next thing that I found kind of odd that could have actually been interesting was this idea of when they were going to fight in the war, they were casting lots to see which of the young men were going to go with them because they needed more men. So Antinous, as played by like Robert Pattinson, when he's younger he gets a lot, and then there's this other character, Sinon, who isn't in the original poem, but whatever, table that for now. It's more so about like swapping places, because Sinon is young, Sinon gets a lot, and then it seems like they try to trade, or one of them wants to trade, because there's a scene where Antinous is talking to Telemachus, Tom Holland's character, and basically telling him like, hey, I tried to go to the war. Because Antinous is an antagonist, they don't like each other, and he's like, why didn't you go to the war? He's like, hey, I tried. The weird thing about this is I found it utterly confusing throughout the whole film, and I was trying to pay attention. Now, I'm not trying to sound like an idiot, like maybe I could catch it again on a second viewing. Part of it, I think, is because Nolan's sound mixing is not the best in this. For the most part, you can hear the dialogue pretty well, but I don't know if it was I was distracted by something else or a sound effect, or I don't really know, but I was like, what's going on here? It's like, is he lying to Telemachus just to make himself look better? They keep going back to this plot point throughout the film, because Sinon is the one who gives the big wooden horse to the Trojans, and in the process dies, right? So this plays out like when Odysseus goes to Hades and talks to the dead. Instead of talking to like Achilles, he talks to Sinon. He talks to some other people too. But the point is, Sinon was like, why did you do this to me? Why did you betray me? You know, and he tries to tell Sinon like, hey, we had to work. If you knew, like, it could have ruined the whole plan. And so he feels guilty about the fact that Sinon died. And then Sinon gives him the lot that he had and tells him, when you go back home and you see Antinous, give him his shame back. Well, again, throughout the whole process of the film, it's like, I can't tell if Sinon was the one who wanted to go to war, or if Antinous was, or if they switched and they lied. Because there's a point in the flashback where Odysseus actually gives the lot back to Antinous as a young man and says like, actually he's supposed to stay and Sinon's supposed to go. Like, we have to keep it fair. It's a bit confusing. And I think someone in another review said something like, I think Antinous' family actually did switch them and was gonna like pay off the family for letting Sinon take his place, but they didn't. I could be totally wrong. At this point, honestly, it doesn't matter to me. The problem for me was I thought the concept was actually kind of interesting, if I knew what was going on, and then the payoff might have actually worked. I'll get to that later in the review, but it didn't work for me. All right, so the next thing is Cersei's palace, which really isn't a palace, it's a hut. It's still a pretty good scene. Most people like that scene. I like how eerie it is. I like the way that they show the men transforming into pigs. People are like, oh my gosh, it's like a horror scene. Like, yeah, it's visually very creepy and odd. That's done well. I don't care for the characterization of Cersei. Not that the acting was strictly bad. I don't know. She didn't seem as intelligent, you know, or seductive as I thought she would be after having read the poem. Also, there's this really weird moment between her and Odysseus where he kind of like figures out what's going on and catches her in her plan, is like, hey, turn my men back into men. And she throws this like hissy fit rant about how that's what they really are. They're really pigs. And if you saw them like I did, you'd know they're actually, and like just this, it's so weird. And it's a disservice to that character. And there's a lot of other takes on the female characters in this film that I thought were very poor, which is sad because I think the female characters in the Odyssey, in the poem, are very interesting. They're very competent and they're multifaceted. And I just was like, man, you're just making her look like vile and petty and like she's not in control rather than like cunning. It would have been more interesting to me to have a similar back and forth of dialogue, but instead of her like whining and crying about it, just be like, what are you gonna do? You think you have control over me? I'm just showing you what they really are. There's no like confidence. There's no like, I got this. It's more like, oh, I can't believe you caught me. You're the worst. They're the worst. It's just like, oh my, it's annoying. I did not like it. And what's also crazy about that scene is when she agrees to turn him back, it's so cringy. Some of the dialogue is really bad in this movie, but like she starts turning them back and she's like, return to your disguises. Return to your disguise or something. And it's just like, oh my gosh, that's so cheesy. That's so awful. Like I almost laughed in the theater. It was so bad. So as I've been saying all this stuff, it's not like I'm trying to say it's the worst movie I've ever seen. It's not. There were a couple things I liked. I liked some of the visuals. I liked the way they kind of did the Hades scene. And for the modernistic, kind of streamlined look of the production design, this was one scene where, for whatever reason, it just kind of worked for me. I thought it looked really cool how they came up out of the ground. I liked seeing this kind of sea of figures that are all wearing like black and it's dark and creepy. So I thought that scene was visually pretty cool. I thought the Cyclops was pretty cool for the most part. Also very creepy. They have the Cyclops eating people and it was pretty close. They don't do the nobody joke, and if you haven't read it, basically the Cyclops wants to know who Odysseus is. He says, I'm nobody. So when he stabs him in the eye and he goes and he cries out for help, the other Cyclops ask him, who hurt you? And he says, nobody. And it's, you know, it's humorous, it's interesting, and it just also shows the cunning of Odysseus, that he's very smart. That's not in it. It would have been nice. It doesn't strictly ruin it for me because they tried to kind of show Odysseus's like cunning and guile in other ways, but they weren't very prominent, and if you aren't really looking for it, you might miss it. And so that was kind of a sad thing that they left it out with the Cyclops scene, I guess. So going back to the characterization of women for a minute, Penelope. For the most part, I thought it was okay. It was like, I didn't think it was great or terrible. It was just whatever. It was like, yeah, that's Penelope. She's sad that Odysseus is gone. Anne Hathaway's acting wasn't like bad. It was just, again, everything in this movie is very flat. It's very monotone. There's not a lot of emotion. And even when there is high emotion, it doesn't hit hard because everything else leading to it or from it is so flat. It's like, well, that just feels like it kind of came out of nowhere. It doesn't resonate, it doesn't hit. There's nothing that you're really connecting to. But there's a moment with Penelope, I was like, oh no, like this is terrible. Like that's not Penelope. And it's when it's near the end of the film and Odysseus is back in Ithaca and he's about to come back in and take care of all the suitors that have been ruining their estate. Well, Telemachus is trying to get things in order without telling his mom that Odysseus is back. Well, he's trying to tell her to pick a suitor. He's trying to get some things started and tell her like, hey, it's gonna be all right. Like, I'm a man now and I'll take care of you and I'll take care of the kingdom and the throne. And so then she like looks at him and it's like dark and she's like all venomous and she's just like, what? Only a man can sit on the throne? She's like I haven't been sitting on the throne for 20 years. And then, he's like, hey, what do you want? And she's like, I want Odysseus. And she like runs out screaming. And I'm like, that's not Penelope. Like she doesn't like the suitors. She doesn't like what's happening, but she loves her son and she loves Odysseus. And there can be a way to show like the frustration of the situation, but still having to figure out what they're gonna do in a way that is like, again, maybe difficult for both of them to figure out, but do it in like a compassionate and loving way towards each other versus just like treating her son like dirt. Like that, I did not like that at all. So now we're kind of near the end, right? Odysseus is back, and the whole scene where he like strings his bow, shoots through the axes, and he's about to take out all the violent men and all the suitors. It was pretty cool at first, and I thought, oh, cool, like this is gonna be epic, it's gonna be awesome. Well, then Telemachus tries to help him, and then he's like, no, stay back. And it's like, I guess he's trying to keep his son from danger, but that's not how it goes in the story. It's like Telemachus helps him out, but because it's Tom Holland, they give him a little side fight with the guy who's like trying to get all the weapons back to the suitors. And it started to feel really clunky and really odd. And then some of the guys realize, oh, we can't beat Odysseus, so they just start kneeling like he's their king again. And in my mind, I'm like, do you really think that's gonna spare you? He's like taking out all these dudes. Do you really think he's just not gonna kill you because you've like knelt down to him? But he doesn't. Like he does. He spares like half the room. And it's like, okay, Nolan, were you just getting tired or something? Like you just didn't want to show all the guys dying, or you just didn't want to have Telemachus help? Like it was very strange to me, because a big part of the plot in the poem is, even if that seems like very, violent or vengeful, it is vengeful, it's a theme in the book, but it's like they kind of have to do it because they know that if he kills any of them at all the parents and the brothers and the family members, like they're gonna be mad at them for it. So they're already expecting that they're gonna have to fight more people after this. So if you spare these guys, you're not only gonna have to fight all those guys, you're gonna have to fight the guys you spared as well. So it was just weird to me. It felt rushed, it felt unnecessary. And obviously this is also the final scene where like he takes Antinous out, right? It's supposed to be this epic moment where you finally take care of the bad guy. And Odysseus gives him the lot that Sinon gave him, shoves it in his mouth, and he's like, here's your shame back, or Sinon gives your shame back or something. But it doesn't work because it's so confusing as to whether Antinous actually wanted to go to the war or not. It's not very clear. And even if it pans out that Antinous was just being a coward, right? And he was lying to Telemachus, like, yeah, I wanted to go to war, and he didn't really. There's still not a lot of weight to it because it's just so murky. There's nothing about it in that situation that really shows any heroic aspect of Odysseus or Sinon or anything. It's just this weird tool that Nolan used to show, like, I guess Odysseus's survivor's guilt and his like PTSD and his trauma over having to do things in a war that he felt bad about, and I'm not saying people don't feel bad about the things they do in war. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but it just, because it's so murky, there's nothing that hits home. It could have hit home. Like I was saying, that was something I thought could have been very interesting, but ultimately it just falls flat. And I think he tricks you into thinking that it's powerful and cool because he gives you like a Hollywood moment, basically, like, here's your shame back, like, and he takes it, like, I don't know, it just did not work for me. Also, they tried to fake you out at the end, like Odysseus was gonna die, and at first I was like, whew, man, if you have Odysseus die, this movie's gonna be terrible, but they fake you out with some really cringe dialogue from Anne Hathaway's character, Penelope. And that's another thing, most of the modern language was like, A lot of times I didn't notice or care that much, but there were times where it was like, it stood out and it took me out of the story. For me, like, that was not a good choice on Nolan's part to do all the modern day language. So another thing that I found very, very odd about this movie is that, like, the Greek gods are in it, but they're also not in it. And I'll do my best to explain this. They basically have to be in it. They're so fully interwoven and integrated into the story of the poem that if you remove them, you literally don't have the same story. Like, it's impossible. So there's mention of Zeus and Zeus's law, and there's mention of Poseidon, and we have Athena with Odysseus as he's going places, and we see Circe and we see Calypso, but everything is stripped down. Everything is stripped back of its wonder, of its reality. Because every time you see Athena, you only see her with Odysseus. No one else sees her. Now, in the story, Athena can take the shape of other people, and that's cool because she kind of like hides herself. So there is mystery and intrigue there, but she's very much present, actually present and real, and other people do see her, they just don't always know it's her. So in this, you don't know if she's real or if he's just imagining her. Well, then there's a scene when they sack Troy and they show this, I think she's a priestess in the temple of Athena, and they cut her head off. Well, the priestess is played by Zendaya. So he's always visualizing Athena as this girl. But at the same time, Athena could take the shape of this young priestess. But the problem with all of that is you don't know, and you're not supposed to know. He purposefully does that because he wants this movie to feel so like rooted and grounded and earthy and real that anything that's too supernatural, anything that's too, divine, he has no way of telling you that in a way that's believable or convincing because he doesn't relate to that himself, most likely. I don't know his personal beliefs or, if he believes in God or a higher power, but I feel like he might struggle with the idea of that a little bit, and it just shows in his work. So essentially, you're left with kind of thinking that Athena is maybe like just PTSD, right? He's just imagining this girl that he saw murdered in front of him, and he feels, again, bad about it. But then the problem that arises for me as well is when they go to Hades and they see the dead, they sacrifice and they see the dead come out. At that point, it's not just Odysseus. There's his men behind him, and they see the dead. So they're all seeing this supernatural thing happen. So it's like this almost contradicting thing of like, the gods are there, but they're also not. But no matter how you slice it, there's nothing really like hopeful about it. There's nothing that when you see them or when they show them or talk about them that makes you think that like you could be actually favored by the gods or helped by the gods or stopped by the gods, consequences. It's all just this kind of, again, very flat mentioning, and you say it because you have to say it, which leads me into like Calypso as well. Calypso is so wrong in this story, in my opinion. She's just like a random woman on an island. But the same thing is like, is she even real? I don't even know if she's real. It's like, is she a woman? Is she a nymph? Is she a goddess? Is she just, again, part of his PTSD because he's eating the lotus flowers and his mind's all messed up? Another thing that's weird about that whole scene is she positions this idea to him that like he doesn't actually want to go home. And they never follow through on it. And what's weird is I think shortly after, even Athena positions that same thing to him like, why don't you want to go home? There's no answer. There's no more talk about it. There's no explanation. And it plays out like the story does. He does go home. So it's like, well, why did you even put that there? And I don't know. Again, are you trying to talk about survivor's guilt? Like, I can't show my face because I feel bad that I went to war. Like, again, it's just another thing of many things in this movie that is just muddy and confusing and flat. So a couple more things I'll try to rattle off really quick, and then I'll try to kind of give you my overall thoughts. I mentioned the language a little bit earlier. The modern language, didn't like it. The F-bombs in it are just so awkward and out of place. I don't necessarily mind that there's language. There's cussing in the poem, like people, hurl insults at each other. But dropping the F-bombs, like, these actors have probably said that word a million times in their own lives or in other films, and they looked and sounded awkward when they did it. It was like, it's like they've never said it before or something. It just felt so weird and so out of place. And again, just kind of took me out of the scene. So that was dumb. The music was very bland. Not saying it's bad, not great. It's a lot of clanking noises. I don't know if it's meant to kind of sound like swords, but it's like this clank, clank, clank over and over, and it's like, I guess that's music. The themes, I mentioned that earlier. I think the themes were very muddy and murky. To me, when I read it, there's this theme of home and family very heavily, right? Like Penelope is waiting. She's waited for 20 years. And again, like Odysseus, she's also very cunning and smart. She is weaving this tapestry that when she's done, she's supposed to pick a suitor, but every night she unweaves it. Telemachus, he's waiting for his father. He's heard all the legends about how he's a great warrior and a hero, and It's like, well, if he really is that, like, surely there's a possibility he's alive. You know, in Odysseus, same thing. It's like, man, the gods may be mad at me, but like, they haven't killed me yet. You know, I've got nothing else to live for. I live for my wife. I live for my son. You know, like, I'm gonna try to get back. Like, family and home is a super strong theme. And to this, it's like, those things are there, but again, just only so much as they have to be. It's just barely there. It's flat. It's like, that's not the drive. It doesn't feel like that's the driving force of this narrative. And to be honest with you, I'm not even entirely sure what is the driving force of the narrative, because everything is cold and emotionless and flat. And I think they tried to insert one at the end, you know, talking about the end of the Bronze Age and that everything's chaos. And then Odysseus is kind of like, but we can rebuild. We can make a better world. And I'm like, listen, that's a fine message. I have nothing against that message, but I don't feel like it's earned. I don't feel like they did anything or said anything or showed anything that's like, yeah, they were leading up to this. And like, yeah, that hits home and that's cool. And like, yeah, we should all work together and build a better world. It's like, fine message. It came out of nowhere, it felt like. So my overall feeling of this movie is, it's not a bad movie. It's not a great movie. Does it essentially tell the story of the Odyssey? It hits, I would say, most of the major plot points. It does cover them. But again, only so much as it has to. I feel like a lot of things are stunted or cut short, and I think the characterizations of like Odysseus and Telemachus and all these people is not good. Like, to me, nothing against Matt Damon, I think he's a great actor. I did not feel like that was Odysseus I was watching, and I don't think that's his fault. I think it's the writing. Like, he seems weak, he doesn't seem like he wants to get home, he's not as cunning as he should be, he's not like this strong leader. Like, it was just not Odysseus. For me, it's like this, even though it hits all the major plot points, I wouldn't call this the Odyssey. I would say it's Christopher Nolan's version of the Odyssey. To me, it's more like this film is inspired by the Odyssey. Like, yes, it's a sword and sandals epic, although it didn't feel epic really at all. It's like, you know, we're trying to tell this kind of mythological tale that is inspired by the Odyssey, but it's not really the Odyssey. And that may seem a little unfair. You can disagree, and you feel free to disagree. If you loved it, I'm not saying don't love it, okay? But to me, it didn't have the heart of the story. It didn't have the spirit of the story, or the characters, or the drive, or the themes, or the weightiness, or the consequences, or the morals. I felt like that was all stripped back, or subdued, or changed. And again, I have nothing against with the idea of rebuilding and working together, making a better world, but it's like, I don't know if that's really the message of the story or what we should be taking away from this. So it's like, if you liked it, fine. If you don't like it, fine. For me, it's middle of the road. It's mediocre. It's mediocre or slightly below. But here's my problem. There's just so many films being made nowadays that are middle of the road. And I don't want movies to be bad. Hear me clearly. I don't want them to be bad. I want them to be great. I want to love them and be excited and be hyped and talk to people and like, let's go see it again. That's what I want. That's not what this movie is to me. To me, it's like, I don't need to see this ever again. It's shot well. I think it's cool that it's shot on IMAX. All that's fine. But as a film, as a story, it's so middle of the road. It's so boring. And so I would rather, again, I don't want a movie to be bad, but at least if a movie is bad, I can make fun of it, we can talk about it. There can still be entertaining things in a bad movie, and people purposefully watch B movies. You know, it's like, there can still be something entertaining about it. But when it's just like mediocre in middle of the road, it's literally nothing. Like the entertainment value, it just is stripped out of it. There's no like rewatch value, there's no impactfulness. And to me, I've realized over the last, 10 years or so, I'm like, okay, a mediocre movie is actually a bad movie. Yeah, as weird as that may sound. Honestly, on its face, it's like, no, it's not the worst movie ever made. It's not absolutely terrible. There's good acting. There's things I did like. There were things in it that were better than I thought they would be. And there was a point when I was watching it, I was like, oh, this could actually be decent. Like, I actually might end up liking this. But by the end, nothing paid off. By the end, it all fell flat. And so that was hard for me because, like, man, I was getting kind of excited for a minute and I thought this was gonna be better than I thought. And then it was just like, no, it's not. It's just this boring mess. It's a boring mess. And so for me, that actually makes it a bad film. So if I'm being honest, I wouldn't recommend seeing it. But if you're hyped and you want to see it, do whatever you want. I love going to movies, and if you're excited, I don't want to take that away from you. That being said, guys, if you like this video or you found any value in it, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm really trying to grow this channel. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments. Did you like it? Did you not like it? And you're welcome here no matter what, okay? If you like it, please leave comments. If you didn't like it, you're welcome too. I just ask that please be nice to each other in the comments. Please no name calling. There's no need for that. Everyone's welcome here, okay? And if you did like it, feel free to try and change my mind. I'm open. I'm open to seeing something I missed or, an explanation that I didn't catch right away. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next one.